A very happy Tuesday morning to you, and it's good to see you this morning. Today is Brendan and my 41st anniversary, and we've been blessed. We have two great kids. They married two great people. We have 5 great grandchildren. It's just wonderful. It really is. And so today's an appropriate day to talk about Philippians 3:1. There's 2 key words that I want to talk with you about. They're just powerful words. They're really important for our spiritual journey. And then a basic thought principle that Paul shares with the Philippian church. And chapters 3 and 4 are 2 of the finest practical chapters on the Christian faith that have ever been written. Really giving us, sit down and do these things with your life daily, and you will have a relationship with God that surpasses anything you ever imagined. These 2 chapters just really summarize them for us. And there's a concept, and it's this first verse, is a concept that Paul repeats several times in these couple of chapters. So we're going to read Philippians chapter 3, verse 1. And he begins with finally. So like, I'm finally going to get to tell you something that's really going to help you. And we know the occasion of the letter. We know the seriousness of Paul's situation. And so he's going to share with them now a real practical way to get up in the morning and live a Christian life. He says this: "Finally, my brothers, rejoice in the Lord!" Exclamation point. "It is no trouble for me to write the same things to you again, and it is a safeguard for you." So I'm going to talk about the principle first. The spiritual principle that Paul, in his writing, makes very, very clear is important to him, and that is repeating the same spiritual exercises in your life over and over and over. He says it's not trouble for me to repeat these things to you. But there are lessons that God has taught us in our lives and lessons that are yet to be learned. But there are those few lessons that need to be repeated. And that repetition is what becomes the key word, safeguard. It becomes a safeguard. That's the first word that I want to talk with you about. The principle is repeat the lessons. The action is, what the result of that principle is, it becomes a safeguard for you. So I wanted to show you something this morning. I have this handy little book that I still use. I got it when I was in seminary. It's called an Interlinear Greek English Lexicon. And in here, inside the pages, it has this lovely little exercise that it does. You can see it there, where it takes, see where it takes the Greek word, and then right below it, it puts an English word, so that you have an idea of the words that Paul was using, and then how they were translated. And then I have several other resource books that I use. That I have one resource book that looks specifically at that word in that context of that particular letter. And then I have a 20-some volume set that takes that word and looks at it in the context of all Greek literature, and not just the Bible, but all Greek literature. And he even refers back to some Jewish literature if that's important. And so there's 2 words that I want to talk with you about. The first is the word safeguard. And the principle is we need to repeat the basic lessons of being a Christian in our lives. When you repeat that, the result of that repetition is it becomes a safeguard. And so the safeguard word is asthales, A-S-T-H-A-L-E-S, asthales. And what it literally means is to make someone safe, or to place a protection around, or a hedge around, or to have someone stand guard over you. And so if we repeat the basic fundamental principles, the truths, the great truths that we've learned as Christians, we repeat them, then that repetition acts as a protector over us. We cannot foresee in our lives what troubles are ahead. We know they're there. We know they're coming. They're there for everyone. But not everyone enters into trouble with a safeguard, with a protector standing by. And that's just a great principle that Paul has of why he's writing this to the Philippians. He says, if you will do the process, if you will repeat the process, then Christ stands as a guard over your soul. What a tremendous way to start these last couple of chapters in Philippians. And the first we're going to look at several of these in these last two chapters. The first repetition that Paul wants the church to practice is the spiritual principle of rejoicing. He says, rejoice in the Lord. It's not trouble for me to write this to you. It's not trouble for me to write the same thing to you. In fact, it's not trouble for me to say the same thing to you over and over and over and over and over and over again. Because learning how to rejoice becomes your protector. God rewards the rejoicing by empowering the Spirit in you to live through whatever trouble's ahead of you. And so that's the second of the key words today. The first was safeguard. Repeat a process so that God can protect you. And the first process is rejoicing. Now, some of you, if you've listened to me talk about this word over the last 30 years of my life, we all understand that rejoicing is not happiness. It's not driven by circumstances. The word is kairete, from kairos, and it means to put the joy in the center, to put joy in the center. And then the re part, re-joy, is to repeat that. So we continually put the joy into the center. And so it would behoove us to understand what is the joy. First, it's not circumstantial. It's not happy. It's not because something happens in my life that I rejoice. It's not because, and my rejoicing isn't taken away because something negative happens in my life. No, to joy means to place something in the center of your life. And that thing that is the center, we even sing this, the joy of what? The joy of the Lord. When we place the Lord in the center of our life and we trust in Him, and we turn to believe that He has all things in His hands, that we can trust in His goodness, then the circumstances simply circle around that which is in the center, which is the joy of the Lord. Joy is the result of a decision of purpose. And when my decision of purpose matches God's decision of creation, when those two things match, God's purpose and my purpose, then I am enjoying my life because I am living according to my created purpose. I put joy in the center of my life. And the circumstances that make me happy or sad just simply circle around and come and go. The joy never moves. And so this is the first principle that we have to really begin to remember. And in this word, when Paul says rejoice, it's important in these next two chapters for us to realize the kind of language that Paul is using. The Greeks had a lot of different verbs for past, present, and future tense. We do too in English, but not as many as the Greeks. And one of the verbs that they have, and these two chapters use this verb almost exclusively. When it's talking about the principles of being a Christian, to rejoice means I could have had a decision in the past to put God in the center of my life and Christ in the center of my life, and that's over and done with. That's a verb choice. Paul doesn't use that one. I could have done something right now that affects my right now. I could rejoice right now and make a decision to put Christ at the center of my life right now, but that's not the verb that Paul uses. In these two chapters, he uses this verb that says that something that I've done in the past, a decision that I've made in the past, impacted my past, which in turn impacts my today, which will continue to impact my tomorrow. So they have this continuation verb. Rejoicing is a continuation verb. There's a decision that I made in the past to put Christ at the center of my life. I need to repeat that process in my life. If I want the Spirit of God to be a safeguard over my soul, I have to repeat that today. And I have to wake up in the morning and rejoice. And remember that I am God's child, and He is at the center of my life, and He's a good God, and He only wants good for me. And I have to repeat that to myself. But I already know, because Paul tells me, I'm not going to have to just repeat that today. I'm going to have to do that again tomorrow. And I'm going to have to do that for the rest of my life, because if I don't do that, I lose my safeguard. And I don't want to lose my safeguard, because to live without joy is to live without meaning or purpose. And we allow ourselves to become vulnerable if we don't repeat the fundamental principles of the Christian faith. And so here now, Paul begins to tell us about what it means to live in Christ. There are certain fundamental things that we should practice. And the first thing that he talks about in this chapter is we should practice rejoicing. We should put that at the center of our morning and begin our day with rejoice in the Lord. It's no trouble for me to tell you this: rejoice in the Lord today. Your joy is not in your circumstances, and it is not dependent upon happy things surrounding you. Your joy is in the Lord. And so your joy comes as a result of God's relationship with you and you trusting Him for whatever is going on in your life. If I didn't know this, if I didn't learn this and continue to learn it, my life would be very, very different. But my life is what it is because I've chosen to rejoice. And I got to tell you, I did it again today. You have to choose this in your life, and you have to repeat the process. And every time you choose it, it becomes stronger in your life. So that's the first thing, is that there are certain things, rejoicing being the first one that we're going to talk about, that need repetition in our lives. And that repetition then becomes our safeguard for the future and for the present as well. There are some things that happen in life that are so very difficult that without a safeguard, we would fall. It's like a safety net for a trapeze artist. We would fall to our own destruction. And if we don't go into trouble with the Lord at the center of our life, then it's very difficult to have that safety when you're in the midst of the trouble. You end up relying upon people's opinions, friends' ideas, or the most dangerous of all is just your emotional response to life. And that's sad, to live your whole life simply responding to the circumstances of the day. It is a far more peaceful life and a more content life if you live it on purpose. And in order to live on purpose, you have to repeat certain things in your life. To be a disciple means that you're a student and you're learning. And so that's another one of the principles that Paul's going to talk with us about. And so the first principle that I want to share with you is spend a moment today rejoicing in the Lord, putting Christ at the center of your life. That means at the center of your emotions, at the center of your decisions, at the center of your intellect. Spend time thinking about your relationship with Christ and what he means to you, and how he strengthens you, and how the Spirit convicts and guides and teaches and guards you against negative thoughts and even against evil. Christ is with us. Those of us who know him, he walks with us. He knows our name and we know him. And so you remain in Christ and he will remain in you. And so that principle, and I'm just going to close with this. Joy, rejoicing in the Lord, is a decision that we make to put Jesus in the center of our day, of our emotions, and of our life. And we repeat that decision. We've done it in the past. We need to do it today. And we're likely going to need to do it tomorrow, so that Christ can become a safeguard of our souls. What a great principle for us to have in our lives. And so I pray that today would be a great day of rejoicing for you, that you would again remind yourself that Christ is for you. He died for you. Make a decision to put him at the very center of your life, and he will teach you and guide you through the days that are ahead. You have a great day, and I will see you next Tuesday.